If this is a test, I won't sit for it." The words hung in the humid Indiana air like a challenge. Victor Castellane, worth $8.9 billion, owner of 17 companies, a man who'd watched senators grovel for campaign donations, froze with his car door half open. The crumpled $5 bill dangled between the waitress's calloused fingers and his manicured hand. "Excuse me." His voice carried the razor edge of someone unaccustomed to defiance. Emma Reyes didn't flinch. Under the flickering parking lot light of May's diner, her tired eyes met his with something Victor hadn't seen in decades, dignity that couldn't be purchased. "Kindness isn't measured by money, sir. Keep your $5. She turned and walked back inside, her orthopedic shoes squeaking against the cracked pavement, leaving Victor standing alone beside his rented Honda, the disguise he'd chosen for tonight's experiment. Behind him, his security detail waited in a black SUV 3 blocks away. In his pocket, his phone was still recording. He'd planned this perfectly. Or so he thought. Quick for you, where are you watching from? Drop your state or country in the comments. I'm curious how far this story reaches, and make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss out on our amazing life stories. 3 months ago, Victor's oncologist had given him the news with clinical precision. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, maybe 6 months if he was lucky. Victor didn't feel lucky. He felt furious. Furious that his empire, built from coding in a garage to owning the infrastructure half the internet ran on, would be inherited by vultures. His son Nathaniel had already leaked confidential AI research to Chinese competitors for a $40 million payout. His daughter Diane was sleeping with his CFO, planning a post-funeral merger that would gut the company for parts. His third ex-wife had hired forensic accountants. His board members were measuring the drapes in his office. Everyone was waiting for him to die. Everyone had a price. That's when Victor decided on one final test. He would find one person, just one, who couldn't be bought. Someone who would prove that human integrity still existed before his heart stopped beating. He'd disguised himself, driven 6 hours from Chicago to this forgotten town, and chosen this rundown diner deliberately. May's was barely surviving, its employees desperate. Perfect conditions for his experiment. The woman who'd served him, Emma, her crooked name tag read, had dark circles under her eyes and a smile that seemed genuine despite obvious exhaustion. She'd refilled his coffee without being asked, laughed at his terrible joke about the meatloaf, and asked if he was okay when he started coughing. She treated him like a human being, not a wallet. So he'd left the insult. $5 on a $47 check. He'd done this 12 times before in different cities, left an offensively small tip and waited to see the performance. The anger, the social media post, the chase through the parking lot, demanding more, the tears, the manipulation. He documented it all. Proof of his theory. Everyone breaks eventually. Everyone has a price. But Emma had just proven him wrong. Victor looked at the $5 bill in his hand, then at the diner's grimy window where Emma was now refilling an elderly man's water glass. Something twisted in his chest. Not the cancer. Something worse. Shame. He climbed into the Honda, hands shaking. Instead of driving away, he called his head of security. "I need a full background check. Emma Reyes. Works at May's Diner, Route 40, Greenfield, Indiana. Everything. And I mean everything. Financial records, social media, criminal history, employment records, medical history if you can get it. I want to know if this is an act." "Sir, that's going to take 24 hours. Pay whatever you need to pay." Victor started the engine but couldn't bring himself to leave. Through the window, he watched Emma handle a customer who was clearly berating her about something. She nodded, apologized, and returned with a replacement meal, that same tired smile never wavering. Who is she? And why can't I buy her? The question would consume him. The answer would destroy everything he thought he knew about people, about power, about himself. And the clock was ticking. 6 months. Maybe less. Victor pulled out of the parking lot, but something had shifted. The test wasn't over. It had just begun. The background check arrived at 3:47 a.m. Victor hadn't slept. He sat in his penthouse office 63 floors above Chicago, morphine pump humming beside his desk, reading the report that would haunt him for the rest of his abbreviated life. Emma Reyes, age 29, single mother, Daughter, Sophia, age 7, diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia 14 months ago. Medical debt, $247,000 and climbing. Works 72 hours weekly across May's Diner and a late-night gas station. Sleeps in her 2009 Toyota Camry between shifts. Bank balance, $143. No criminal record. No social media presence. No scandals. But there was more. Victor's investigator had flagged something from 1 week before Victor's visit. Something that made his hands tremble as he scrolled through the scanned documents. A formal complaint filed with the Indiana Department of Health, signed by Emma Reyes, against her manager. Victor leaned forward, reading faster. Emma had reported Dale Hutchins, May's Diner manager, for skimming employee tip pools, serving expired food to nursing homes, and creating a hostile work environment. But the investigator's notes revealed something that made Victor's breath catch. Subject was offered $10,000 in cash by Hutchins to retract complaint and sign NDA. Subject refused. Hutchins is currently under investigation. Subject had been subjected to workplace retaliation, hours cut, hostile schedule changes, social isolation from co-workers. $10,000. For Emma, that was 3 months of her daughter's treatment. That was getting out of her car and into an apartment. That was survival. She'd said no. Victor closed his laptop and pressed his palms against his eyes. The morphine made everything feel distant, dreamlike, but this was real. This was impossibly, dangerously real. Drop your opinion if you think Emma made the right choice. I need to know what you're thinking right now. Over the next 3 weeks, Victor returned to May's Diner 6 times. He sat in different booths, wore different disguises, and watched. Not like a billionaire conducting an experiment anymore. Like a dying man searching for something he'd lost and couldn't name. He watched Emma slip extra fries onto the plate of a homeless veteran who ordered only coffee. He saw her stay 2 hours past her shift to train a teenage busboy with Down syndrome that Dale had hired only for a tax credit. He heard her on the phone during her break, lying to her daughter about why she couldn't come home yet, voice cracking with exhaustion and love. He witnessed Dale corner her by the kitchen, voice low and vicious. You think you're better than us? You think your complaint's going somewhere? I know people, Emma. I can make things very difficult for you. Emma's response was quiet but unbreakable. Then I guess things will be difficult. Victor's investigator delivered updates weekly. Emma had been denied a loan for Sophia's next treatment round. Her car's transmission was failing. She donated her last $20 to the busboy's mother's funeral fund. She'd been offered a settlement by Dale's lawyer, $15,000 to make everything go away. She'd refused again. The 4th week, Victor made a mistake. He arrived at May's on a Tuesday night, forgetting that Emma had told another customer, in a conversation he'd overheard, that Tuesdays were her daughter's hospital days. But there she was anyway, moving between tables with that devastating smile, eyes red from crying. He couldn't help himself. When she refilled his coffee, he asked, "Shouldn't you be somewhere else tonight?" Emma's hand froze. She looked at him, really looked, and something shifted in her expression. Recognition flickering. Do I know you? Victor's heart hammered. No, you mentioned to another customer last week about Tuesdays. You've been here before. It wasn't a question. The coffee's good. Emma set down the pot, studying his face. The parking lot. The $5. He could see her connecting pieces. You're the man who left. Emma, table 6 needs water. Dale's bark from across the diner cut her off. She hesitated, then nodded and walked away. But she knew. Victor saw it in the careful way she avoided his section for the rest of the evening. That night, Victor made his decision. He called his lawyer. I'm rewriting my will. All of it. I need you at my house tomorrow morning, and I need you to bring paperwork for establishing an executorship with full financial discretion. Victor, you're not thinking clearly. The medication. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in 50 years. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Don't be late. He hung up and pulled out the burner phone he'd been using. He composed a message to Emma through the diner's public email. I know what you turned down. I know what it cost you. I need to speak with you. It's important. A friend. He hit send and waited, knowing this would either be the most important thing he'd ever do or the final proof that his cynicism was justified. At 11:34 p.m., Emma responded, "If this is some kind of game, I already told you I won't play. I don't know who you are or what you want. Please leave me alone." Victor smiled, his first genuine smile in months. Even now, she wouldn't bite. He typed back, "No game, no test. Just a question. Why do you assume the worst in people?" The response came 5 minutes later. "Because someone once taught me that's all they're capable of. He left me a $5 tip to prove it." Victor stared at those words until his vision blurred. Then he wrote, "What if he was wrong? What if you proved him wrong?" No response. But the next morning, Emma was waiting in May's parking lot when Victor pulled up in his real car, the Tesla with the distinctive plates. Her arms were crossed. Her jaw was set. And Victor knew the conversation that was about to happen would change everything. "You're him," she said as he stepped out. "Victor Castellane. I Googled the license plate." "Yes." "Why?" Victor leaned against the car, suddenly exhausted. "Because I'm dying, and I need to know if people like you actually exist or if you're just better at hiding your price than everyone else." Emma's expression shifted, anger giving way to something more complex. "And what's your conclusion?" "I don't have one yet. That's why I'm here." They stood in silence, the morning sun brutal and honest between them. Finally, Emma spoke, her voice carrying a weight that made Victor's chest ache. "I'm not for sale, Mr. Castellane. Not my integrity, not my silence, not my kindness. So if you're waiting for me to ask for something, to prove whatever point you're trying to make, you'll be waiting when that cancer kills you." She turned to leave. "I'm making you the executor of my estate." Emma stopped, turned slowly. "What?" $8.9 billion. I'm giving you complete control over where it goes and how it's used. Not to you. You won't own it. But you'll decide who deserves it and who doesn't. You'll make sure it's never used the way I use it, to test people, to buy people, to break people. Emma stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. "You don't even know me. I know you turned down money when your daughter was dying. I know you reported corruption when it would have been easier to look away. I know you pushed $5 back into my hand when you could have taken it and hated me in silence." Victor's voice cracked. "I know you're the only person in 50 years who's asked me why I assume the worst in people instead of begging me to assume the best in you." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "This is insane. Your family. My family will destroy everything I built to fight over the pieces, unless I put it in the hands of someone who can't be destroyed by money because they've already survived without it." The words hung between them, impossible and true. Emma wiped her eyes, then met his gaze with that same unbreakable dignity. "If I say yes, and I'm not saying yes, I have one condition." "Name it." "You tell me the truth. Why did you really leave that $5? Victor looked away, ashamed. "To prove you'd break. To prove everyone breaks. To prove I was right to trust no one. And now I'm hoping you'll prove I can die wrong." Emma stood there, trembling, this exhausted waitress holding the power to accept or destroy a dying billionaire's last desperate attempt at redemption. "I need time," she finally whispered. "I have 6 months, maybe less. Then you'll have my answer in 1 week." She walked into the diner, leaving Victor alone in the parking lot where this impossible story had started with $5 and a test. He had 7 days to wait. His family had 7 days to find out. And when they did, the real war would begin. The emergency court hearing was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Thursday, but Victor Castellane wouldn't live to see Friday. He knew it. His doctors knew it. And from the predatory gleam in his son Nathaniel's eyes as they assembled in Courtroom 7 of the Cook County Circuit Court, his family knew it too. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Morrow. Victor struggled to stand, oxygen tube snaking from his nose to the portable tank his nurse wheeled beside him. 6 weeks had passed since he'd rewritten his will. 6 weeks since he'd named Emma Reyes, a waitress from Indiana with $143 in her bank account, as executor of his $8.9 billion estate. 6 weeks since his family had discovered the truth and declared total war. Emma sat 3 rows behind him, drowning in a borrowed chute, looking terrified. Her hands shook. She'd wanted to run. Victor didn't blame her. In the past 6 weeks, his family had unleashed everything. Drop your opinion if you think his family should get the money, if you think Emma deserves this. Nathaniel's legal team had filed for emergency conservatorship, claiming dementia. They'd hired psychiatrists who'd never met Victor to testify he was mentally incompetent. Diane had leaked the story to the Wall Street Journal. Dying billionaire falls for gold-digging waitress. Family fights back. The article included a photo of Emma looking exhausted outside the hospital, captioned as evidence of manipulation. Dale Hutchins, the corrupt diner manager, had been offered $50,000 by Nathaniel's lawyers to sign an affidavit claiming Emma had seduced Victor over multiple visits, that she deliberately orchestrated their meeting, that she'd been planning this for months. Victor's executive board had attempted a hostile takeover, spreading rumors that he'd lost touch with reality, that the company needed steady leadership during this transition. His stock had plummeted 12%, but Emma had endured. She'd refused interview requests, declined a $2 million settlement from Diane to go away quietly, continued working at May's Diner even as reporters ambushed her during shifts. She'd looked Victor in the eye 1 week ago and said, "If you believe in this, I believe in you. I won't run." Now, Judge Morrow surveyed the packed courtroom with the expression of someone who'd seen every variation of human greed and was thoroughly unimpressed. This is a petition for emergency conservatorship based on alleged mental incompetence. Mr. Castellane, do you understand why you're here? Victor gripped the defendant's table, forcing strength into his voice. Yes, Your Honor. My children believe I've lost my mind because I chose to give power to someone who can't be purchased rather than people who've already sold themselves. Nathaniel shot to his feet. Your Honor, that statement alone demonstrates. Sit down, Mr. Castellane. Judge Morrow's tone could cut glass. You will have your turn. For 3 hours, the courtroom became a battlefield. Nathaniel's lawyers presented psychiatric evaluations, financial records showing erratic behavior, testimony from business associates claiming Victor was not himself. They painted Emma as a con artist, a manipulator who'd exploited a dying man's vulnerability. Diane took the stand, tears streaming. I love my father. We all do, but is not thinking clearly. This woman, she pointed at Emma. She targeted him. She knew he was sick, knew he was vulnerable. She saw an opportunity, and she took it. Daddy, please, come home. Let us take care of you. It was a masterful performance. Victor saw several jurors softening. Then came Emma's turn. She walked to the stand like someone approaching a gallows, sworn in with a trembling hand. Nathaniel's lead attorney, Marcus Sullivan, circled her like a shark. Ms. Reyes, you're a waitress, correct? Yes. With substantial medical debt? Yes. And you expect this court to believe that Mr. Castellane, one of the wealthiest men in America, just randomly decided to make you executor of his entire estate after meeting you exactly once? Emma's voice was barely audible. I didn't expect anything. You didn't expect anything, Sullivan repeated, mockery dripping. You didn't expect that refusing a $5 tip would result in an $8 billion windfall. I didn't refuse it for money. I refused it because it was a test, and I'm not a performing seal. The courtroom went silent. Sullivan blinked. Excuse me. Emma's voice grew stronger. He left that $5 to see what I'd do, to see if I'd grovel, complain, or chase him down begging for more. I refused to play that game. I told him kindness isn't measured by money, and I meant it. If that somehow resulted in this, she gestured at the chaos around her, it's not because I asked for it. It's because maybe, just maybe, he realized that spending 50 years testing people with money made him the problem, not them. Sullivan's face reddened. Ms. Reyes, you're asking this court to believe. I'm not asking this court to believe anything. Emma cut him off, and Victor felt tears prick his eyes. I'm telling you what happened. Mr. Castellane left an insulting tip. I gave it back. That's it. Everything after that was his choice, not mine. And if you think that's manipulation, then maybe you should ask yourself what kind of world you're living in where basic human dignity looks like con. The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrow banged a gavel, calling for order, but Victor was already moving. He stood, oxygen tank clattering, and his nurse rushed forward to steady him. "Your Honor," his voice cut through the chaos. "I have something to say." "Mr. Castellane, you should sit." "I'm dying." The words silenced the room. "I have days, maybe hours. So forgive me, Your Honor, but I'm going to speak now because I won't get another chance." Judge Morrow studied him, then nodded slowly. "Proceed." Victor turned to face his children. Nathaniel's expression was stone. Diane was crying. He felt nothing but pity. "I failed you both. I taught you that money was the only thing that mattered, that people were commodities to be bought and tested and used. I taught you to trust no one because I trusted no one. I taught you that power meant never being vulnerable, never being wrong, never being human." His voice broke. "I'm so sorry, but I won't compound that failure by leaving you an empire built on cynicism so you can spread that poison to another generation." He pulled out his phone with shaking hands, queued up the recording he'd made in May's diner parking lot 6 weeks ago. Emma's voice filled the courtroom. "If this is a test, I won't sit for it. Kindness isn't measured by money." Then his own voice, barely recognizable. "Excuse me." Emma's response, "Keep your $5, so." Victor stopped the recording. That's the moment I realized I'd spent 50 years asking the wrong question. I kept asking, what's everyone's price? When I should have been asking, what did I become when I assumed everyone had one? He looked at Emma, this exhausted waitress who'd somehow become the most powerful person in this room. Ms. Reyes didn't seduce me. She didn't manipulate me. She did something far more dangerous. She treated me like a human being without asking for anything in return. And in doing so, she revealed that the test I'd been running for 50 years wasn't testing other people. It was testing me, and I'd been failing for decades. Victor pulled a file from his briefcase, documents spilling across the table. "Your Honor, I have evidence here of my children's activities while I've been dying. Nathaniel sold classified AI research to foreign competitors for $40 million. The FBI has an open investigation. Diane has been colluding with my CFO to engineer a post-funeral merger that would gut our company's pension fund and eliminate 4,000 jobs. My ex-wives have hired private investigators to fabricate evidence of hidden assets. My board members have been shorting our stock while spreading rumors of my incompetence." He dropped the file. Papers scattered like accusations. "These are the people asking you to declare me incompetent for choosing someone with integrity over them. These are the people who think my will should be overturned because I decided that $8 billion in the hands of someone who returned 5 deserves more trust than $8 billion in the hands of people who'd sell their soul for $5 million. Nathaniel was on his feet, face purple with rage. "That's defamation. Your Honor, is any of it untrue?" Victor's eyes were steel. "Because I have documentation for every claim. Would you like me to continue?" Diane was sobbing. Several board members stood to leave. Judge Morrow banged a gavel repeatedly, restoring order through sheer force of authority. "Mr. Castellane," she said carefully, "you're making serious allegations." "I'm making true allegations, Your Honor. And I'm making them public because my son asked what kind of world Ms. Reyes lives in where basic human dignity looks like a con. The answer is the world I created, a world where money is the only measure of worth, where kindness is weakness, where integrity is naive and cynicism is sophistication." Victor's leg buckled. His nurse caught him, eased him into his chair. "I'm using the time I have left to burn that world down, starting with my will." Judge Morrow was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to Emma. "Ms. Reyes, do you understand what Mr. Castellane is asking of you? The responsibility? The burden?" Emma's voice was quiet but unwavering. "Yes, Your Honor." "And you accept it?" "I accept it, not because I want his money, but because someone should make sure it's used to help people instead of hurt them. And if he thinks I can do that..." She looked at Victor, eyes bright with tears. "Then I'll try." Judge Morrow reviewed the documents before her, the psychiatric evaluations, the financial records, the evidence of Victor's allegations. The courtroom held its breath. "The petition for conservatorship is denied," she finally said. "Mr. Castellane has demonstrated clear and competent understanding of his decisions. His will stands. This court is adjourned." The gavel fell like thunder. Nathaniel lunged toward Victor, security intercepting him. "You've destroyed us. You've destroyed everything." "No," Victor said softly. "I built it wrong. I'm just trying to demolish it before it crushes anyone else." As they wheeled him out, past the screaming children, past reporters shouting questions, past the family and board members whose faces showed nothing but hatred, Victor caught Emma's eye. She was crying, overwhelmed, terrified, but she was standing, unbroken, unbowed. "Thank you," Victor mouthed. Emma nodded, understanding everything he couldn't say. "Thank you for proving me wrong. Thank you for being uncorruptible in a world I corrupted. Thank you for showing me that kindness isn't measured by money, but sometimes money finally ends up in hands that understand what kindness means." 4 hours later, in a private hospital room, Victor Castellane slipped into a coma. The test was over. The real work was about to begin. And for the first time in 50 years, Victor died believing he'd gotten something right. Emma Reyes woke up on a Thursday morning to discover she controlled $8.9 billion. Victor had died 3 days after the court hearing, slipping away in his sleep with a half-smile on his face that the nurses said looked like peace. Emma had been there, holding his hand, listening to his final whispered instructions. "Don't let them win. Don't let my money become another weapon. Promise me." She'd promised. Now, standing in the executive conference room of Castellane Industries 63 floors above Chicago, facing 17 hostile board members who looked at her like she was a stain on their expensive furniture, Emma wondered if she'd promised the impossible. Ms. Reyes, the CFO, Diane's lover, Emma had learned, spoke with barely concealed contempt. "With all due respect, you have no business experience, no education beyond high school, and no understanding of how corporations function. Perhaps we could arrange a consulting role while more qualified individuals handle the actual." "No." Emma's voice was steadier than she felt. "Mr. Castellane's will was explicit. I'm the executor. That means I control the voting shares, oversee all charitable foundations, and make final decisions on corporate direction. So here's my first decision. You're fired. Security will escort you out." The room erupted. Threats of lawsuits. Accusations of incompetence. But Emma had learned something in that courtroom. She'd learned that standing your ground terrifies people more than any amount of money ever could. Within 2 weeks, she fired 8 board members for documented corruption. Within a month, she diverted $400 million from executive bonuses into a living wage initiative for service workers across all Castellane companies. Janitors, food service staff, security guards. People like her suddenly found themselves making $25 an hour minimum with full health care. The business press called it financial suicide. Stock prices fluctuated wildly. Nathaniel and Diane filed appeals, tying up portions of the estate in legal battles that would drag on for years. But Emma had discovered something. Victor had left her more than money. He'd left her a team. There was Marcus Chen, a former corporate whistleblower who'd lost everything exposing accounting fraud, and now helped Emma identify corruption across Victor's companies. There was Dr. Yolanda Pierce, a social entrepreneur who'd built microfinance programs in developing countries and now designed Emma's charitable initiatives. There was James Riley, an investigative journalist who'd been blacklisted for exposing billionaire tax schemes and now ran Victor's media holdings with one mandate: tell the truth, no matter who it hurts. Together, they began dismantling Victor's empire and rebuilding it into something he should have created from the beginning. The Castellane Dignity Initiative launched 4 months after Victor's death. Its mission was simple but radical: ensure that no worker in America would ever again have to choose between integrity and survival. Anonymous whistleblower funds, interest-free loans for medical debt, legal protection for employees facing retaliation, housing assistance for service workers. May's Diner became the headquarters, transformed from a struggling roadside restaurant into a symbol. Emma kept it running, kept serving customers, and every Thursday she worked a full shift herself. When reporters asked why, her answer was always the same: because the moment I forget where I came from is the moment I become what Victor spent 50 years being. And I promised him I wouldn't. Dale Hutchins was sentenced to 3 years for fraud. He served 18 months. Emma hired him upon his release to work in the Castellane Initiative's redemption program, teaching ethics courses to business students. "Even the corrupt deserve a second chance," she told the press. That's what Victor gave me, a chance to prove him wrong about people. I'm giving Dale the same. Sophia's leukemia went into full remission, thanks to experimental treatments Emma could now afford. But Emma still drove the same old Toyota, still lived in a modest apartment in Greenfield, Indiana, still split tips with a dishwasher at Mays. The wealth hadn't changed her, but she was changing what wealth meant. 18 months after Victor's death, the Castellane Dignity Initiative had changed labor laws in 6 states, funded 847 whistleblower cases, and provided emergency relief to over 200,000 service workers. Companies across America were being forced to choose: reform your labor practices or face public exposure, and boycotts organized through Castellane's media network. But late at night, Emma still had doubts, still wondered if she was doing enough, still felt the weight of billions of dollars that could save some people but never everyone. On the anniversary of Victor's death, she received a letter, forwarded through 7 lawyers, sealed with instructions not to open until exactly 1 year had passed. Her hands trembled as she broke the seal. Inside, Victor's handwriting, shaky but determined. Emma, if you're reading this, you survived the first year. They'll come for you. They always do. Money attracts predators like blood in water. Some will try to buy you. Some will try to destroy you. All of them will test whether you meant what you said in that parking lot about not sitting for tests. Here's my final question. Do you still believe kindness isn't measured by money? Because if you do, if you've used my fortune to protect kindness instead of exploit it, then I died believing I finally got something right. Don't give up. The world needs proof that people like you exist. I needed that proof. Maybe others need it too. Thank you for refusing my $5. Thank you for everything after. Emma folded the letter carefully, tears streaming down her face. Outside her window, Chicago glittered with wealth and want, hope and desperation, people being tested every day by a world that measured everything in dollars. She had $8.4 billion left. She had enemies circling. She had impossible work ahead. But she also had something Victor never had until the very end. She had proof that integrity couldn't be purchased, only protected. The real test was just beginning. And this time, Emma would be the one asking the questions. 6 years later, Emma stood in front of a simple granite headstone in Greenfield Cemetery, same as she did every Thursday morning before her shift at May's Diner. The inscription was Victor's choice, written in his will. He spent 50 years asking the wrong questions. She taught him better. Emma placed a diner mug filled with wildflowers on the grave, her weekly ritual, and smiled at the memory of the worn-out man who'd left her $5 and accidentally found redemption. "You'd hate the attention," she said softly to the stone. "But you'd love what's happening." What was happening had exceeded even Victor's dying hopes. The Castellane Dignity Initiative had become a movement. 12 states had passed Emma's law, legislation protecting whistleblowers and guaranteeing living wages for service workers. Over 400 companies had voluntarily reformed labor practices to avoid public campaigns. The Anonymous Whistleblower Fund had exposed corruption in industry from tech to healthcare, sending 47 executives to prison and recovering $2.3 billion in stolen wages. Nathaniel had eventually settled his lawsuit, accepting a $50 million trust that would pay out over 20 years, enough to live comfortably but not enough to rebuild his father's empire. He'd moved to Singapore. Emma heard he was teaching business ethics at a university there. The irony wasn't lost on her. Diane had written Emma a letter 2 years ago. "I hated you. I blamed you for stealing my inheritance. But watching what you've built, I think Dad knew I would have destroyed it. I'm sorry for what we put you through. You earned this more than we ever did." They'd had coffee last month. It was awkward but honest. Healing took time. Sophia was 9 now, healthy and happy, and wanted to be a doctor. She understood that her mom had done something important, but didn't quite grasp the scope. Emma hoped she never would. Hoped Sophia could grow up believing that kindness and integrity were just normal instead of revolutionary. Emma still worked at May's every Thursday. Still drove the Toyota, though she'd had to replace the transmission finally. Still lived modestly, though she bought a small house with a backyard where Sophia could play. Here's the truth that nobody tells you about wealth. It doesn't change who you are. It just reveals it. Victor had spent 50 years using his money to test people, to expose their greed, to confirm his cynicism. He'd been right. Money did reveal people's nature. But what he'd missed until the very end was that it also revealed his own. Every test, every manipulation, every $5 tip left as bait. Those weren't experiments in human nature. They were confessions of his own corruption. Emma had refused to play, and in refusing, she'd handed Victor a mirror he couldn't ignore. The moral of this story isn't that money is evil. Emma had said in her TED Talk last year, the one that went viral with 47 million views. The moral is that money is a magnifier. It makes generous people more generous and cruel people more cruel. Victor's fortune didn't corrupt him. It just gave his corruption unlimited scale. And when he handed that fortune to me, he wasn't giving me power. He was giving me responsibility. She'd paused, looking directly into the camera. So here's my question for all of you. What would you magnify if you had unlimited resources? Your kindness or your bitterness? Your integrity or your grievances? Because even without billions, you're already magnifying something. Every choice you make, every person you help or hurt, every test you give or refuse, that's your fortune. That's your legacy. The audience had given her a standing ovation. Emma had felt terrified and humbled and determined all at once. Now here's what I want you to understand. This story isn't about a billionaire and a waitress. It's about a world that teaches us to test each other instead of trust each other. It's about refusing to play games that diminish human dignity. It's about choosing integrity even when it costs you everything, because integrity is the only thing that can't be taken, only surrendered. Victor left Emma a $5 test. She gave him back something priceless, proof that she couldn't be bought. And in that moment, in that parking lot, under that flickering light, everything changed. Not because of the money that would come later, because of the principle that mattered immediately. Kindness isn't measured by money. Emma had meant it then. She proved it now. And somewhere, she liked to believe, Victor was finally at peace knowing his fortune was in hands that understood what it should have been used for from the beginning. Not to test humanity's worst impulses, but to protect its best ones. She touched the headstone one last time, then checked her watch. Her shift started in 20 minutes. As she walked back to her car, a young woman approached nervously. "Excuse me, are you Emma Reyes?" Emma smiled. "Just Emma. Can I help you?" "I saw your TED Talk. I'm a nurse, and my hospital administrator asked me to falsify patient records to cover up a medication error. I said no, and now they're threatening to fire me. I don't know what to do. I can't afford to lose my job, but I can't." "You can't compromise your integrity," Emma finished gently, "even when it costs you everything." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "But I have student loans, and my mother—" Emma pulled out her phone, typed quickly, "I'm sending you contact information for our whistleblower protection program. They'll connect you with lawyers, help you document everything, and if you lose your job, we'll cover your expenses while you find another one. You did the right thing. You shouldn't have to suffer for it." The woman stared at her phone, stunned. Thank you. I didn't think anyone would." "Someone once gave me a chance to prove that integrity matters more than money," Emma said. "I'm just passing it forward. That's all any of us can do." As the woman walked away, Emma felt a familiar weight, the responsibility of Victor's test, still ongoing, still demanding she prove him right for trusting her. But she also felt something else. Hope? Because if one cynical billionaire could learn to believe in human goodness, maybe the world could too. Here's the lesson. You don't need billions to change the world. You just need to refuse the tests that diminish you. You need to hand back the $5. You need to say, kindness isn't measured by money, and mean it with everything you are. That's what Emma taught Victor. That's what this story teaches us. And that's a legacy worth leaving. Not how much you accumulated, but how much you magnified the good that already existed within you. If this story moved you, if Emma's choice inspired you, if you believe the world needs more people who refuse to be tested and bought and corrupted, then I need you to do something for me. Subscribe to Billionaire Dawn Stories right now. Hit that subscribe button because we're building a community of people who believe that wealth should magnify kindness, not cynicism. People who understand that the real test isn't how much money you make. It's what you magnify with whatever resources you have. Drop a comment telling me, what would you magnify if you had Emma's resources? What's your $5 moment? The test you refuse to sit for? Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Tag someone who embodies Emma's integrity. Let's create a movement of people who hand back the $5 and build something better instead. Because the story doesn't end with Emma. It continues with you, with me, with everyone who chooses integrity over comfort and kindness over cynicism. Subscribe to Billionaire Dawn Stories. Let's magnify the good together. The test is over. The real work begins now. And I want you with me for every story, every lesson, every moment of hope that proves the world can be better than Victor feared and as good as Emma believed. Hit that subscribe button. This is just the beginning.